And I'm just waiting for confirmation. It says I am live, and I just want to let you guys know that we got a little bit of a change up over here. We did have Jordan Vinro on the show yesterday, and I was talking with Jordan a little bit privately. Jordan, the man that he is, he bought Eagle shows. He also bought Black Swan Media, Black Swan Tactical, and gave it to me. So first thing I did is fire John. So it's just going to be Flying Rich. We're probably going to rebrand, and it's not going to be, John Crump Live. That's got to change. It's going to be, Flying Rich Live from now on. And I'm kidding. So John had emergency daddy duty. Nothing strenuous, life changing, just being a dad stuff. So I'm filling in. We got a great show going today. I want to hit our sponsors. So of course, Black Swan Tactical for all of your goods. So blackswantactical.com. Get t-shirts, mugs, stuff like that. And that's right. Normally we'd be rolling video on this, but I'm doing it audio only. So JSD Supply, they provide all cool stuff. And I do have JSD Supply stuff. So I've got the MUP 1. This is the heavy one, so it's the jig. The lighter one is the MUP 1, so that's to build a SIG P320. And of course, Tusk, the ultimate settlement coin, a cryptocurrency geared for the gun industry. So now that I've done the reads, let's bring in the people if I know what button to push. So we're going to add P80 Ralph. We're adding Tim Hoffman. We're adding 2A 3D Print. So 3 of us were at Oaks, Pennsylvania. Tim, where are you from?
Tennessee. So East Tennessee, Monroe County. Have you ever been there?
No. I know a lot of Monroes, but not East Tennessee, Monroe.
Yeah, it's a common name. So yeah, East Tennessee.
Yeah, and I worked in where they filmed Duck Dynasty in Monroe, Louisiana, and they call it Monroe if you're a local.
Yeah, some of the locals pronounce it that way, but it's Monroe to me.
So I think, Ralph, you haven't been on with us here. In fact, none of you guys have been on with us here on John Crump Live, but I think a lot of people know P80 Ralph from Dark's show. You and Dark have been doing a lot of stuff, and we got a big crossover between our audience. Yeah. 2A 3D Print was at Oaks, Pennsylvania, and he basically, you ran the build classes, right?
Yeah.
So he brought some tools and some jigs and stuff like that, and he was showing people how to build the P80s they bought at Oaks, Pennsylvania. It's like, buy it here, walk over that room, and go build it. And Tim Hoffman, Hoffman Tactical, which we're doing a pre-show chat. I'm like, guys, shut up. We need this for the show. This is good content. Tim's done some innovative designs on 3D printing AR-15, AR-9 lowers. Tim, why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so well, there's not too much to talk about, but it's I specialize in like AR-15 design is where I got started, and that's what I've been focusing on really. So I've done AR-15 lowers, LR308 lowers, and also I just did an AR-9 recently. So just AR-15 lowers is what I've been working on primarily, and that's kind of my entire focus, as well as some other more general 3D printing areas like filament testing and stuff like that.
So now the AR-15, well, actually, those 3 lowers, what filament are you printing that in?
So, well, I've printed a lot of different filaments, obviously. These lowers here are all, this one here and this one here are both prototype lowers. They weren't meant to be used, so they're just, I think these are actually color fab PLA PHA is what I was printing those with. But this guy here was actually used on a real gun. And the LR308, this is eSun PLA Plus, but nowadays I actually use a carbon fiber nylon from Push Plastic, which I found is just as easy to print as PLA Plus, but almost as easy. But it is more expensive, and it does require a hardened nozzle. But that's what I use.
Okay, I was going to ask about the nozzle. So you're using a ruby nozzle, steel nozzle? What do you use?
No, actually, I used to use a steel nozzle, but now I use a tungsten carbide nozzle. And you'll have to excuse me, I don't remember the exact name, but it's a Canadian company that makes it, and it's tungsten carbide, which is what's used on a lot of machine tools and stuff like that. And it's very hard, so it's almost as hard as ruby. So it's harder than hardened steel. It's not going to wear out. But the tungsten carbide has very close to the same heat transfer as brass does. So
Oh, wow.
the problem you run into, so it's better than, from everything I can tell, it's way better than a ruby nozzle. It's not fragile, and it only costs like $60. Well, you got to pay shipping and everything, but it's like $80 out the door. So,
but it doesn't cost $100.
Exactly, and you're not going to break it when you run it into your bed. So I think it's the Canadian's like 3D printing company. But if you look for a tungsten nozzle, there's a couple different ones available. Some of them use a steel base with a crimped-in tungsten insert, kind of like the ruby nozzle. I didn't like that. But yeah, tungsten carbide looks like the ultimate nozzle right now. I'm sure people will disagree, but that's what I'm using. I really like it.
Okay, couple of things before we move off the filament type of the nozzle. So typically Ender 3, you're printing with a brass nozzle. The brass nozzle, I don't know what the lifespan is. Eventually they seem to clog for some reason, whether it's dust or stuff.
I've never
material.
I've never changed a brass nozzle unless I'm going to a different kind of nozzle.
Dude, I have machines that run almost 24 hours a day. They've been running for probably 4 months without changing the nozzle.
Same here. Like longer than that. Like like a year worth of printing kind of thing on one nozzle. So
no way. That's crazy. Okay. All right.
Maybe I should change them. Maybe their orifice is getting bigger. I should probably change them. Lower print quality. I don't know, but I haven't had a problem.
Are you cleaning them out at all, or
I do are you guys familiar with cold pulls?
Yeah.
So I occasionally do a cold pull with a PLA plus. So that's really all I do to clean them.
Okay, so back to the filament. So let's see. What's the guy's name? I can never pronounce is he Swiss? Salamander or something like that, whatever the guy's name. Anyhow, he did a whole bunch of tests on filament strength, and he came up with that sandilator. That's it, something like that. He said that any of the impregnated, like whether it's carbon fiber or any other filament, that the fibers are so small and it doesn't even strengthen.
So I think I might know what you're talking about, but I don't think I've watched any of those videos. If you did videos on it, I haven't seen that, but I actually have built a tensile testing machine. So it's very legit. It's got a load cell. It's got like a worm screw and everything on it. So I can print samples. In fact, I have one here. They look like this right there. So it's an actual standardized sample I've come up with, and you pull on it until it breaks, and I can get a stress strain curve and everything. So I've done a lot of testing with different filaments, and I also have an impact tester. Now, impact testing is more complicated. There's a lot more to it. But I have done testing, and I found that the different carbon fiber nylons have obviously very widely varying strength, but carbon fiber significantly improves the strength by like 50%. And it also improves layer adhesion. Okay. Layer adhesion gets significantly better. So I was even like 4 months ago, maybe it was more than that now, but I've done videos on filament, and I've said bad things about carbon fiber in general. Because I had used them a little bit, I had used the carbon fiber PETG and hadn't been that pleased with it, but that was because it was PETG, and PETG sucks. But that's a separate story. But I have done tests, and I found that the carbon fiber does in fact increase strength by a lot, and it also increases layer adhesion some of the time. But all carbon fibers aren't the same. So like Nylon X is something you guys are all familiar with, right? Which is way overpriced, by the way. But anyway, Nylon X is a good example of like a standard carbon fiber nylon. It has like about 50% more tensile strength than a plain nylon, than like a plain nylon which Matter Hacker sells. They sell, I think it's the Pro Nylon. So the Pro Nylon is like 7,000 PSI, and the Nylon X is like 11,000 PSI. So it's significantly stronger, right? The layer adhesion of the carbon fiber nylon is also stronger. Instead of like 6,000, it's like 7,000 PSI. So layer adhesion was not degraded. But the impact strength when you add carbon fiber does go down. From what I've seen, it depends on carbon fiber infill, but in that case of Nylon X, you go down by about 10%. So not that much. So I found that carbon fiber is actually really helpful, but it depends on the carbon fiber filament. Like some carbon fiber filaments, are you guys familiar with nuclear nylon? Atomic filaments, nuclear nylon?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Heard of atomic filaments, not that type of style of nylon though.
Okay, it's their carbon fiber nylon, and it has a very high carbon fiber content. It's actually only like $90 a kilogram, so it's well priced. It has a tensile strength of over 13,000 psi. That's really strong. But unfortunately, I found that it has very poor layer adhesion. So the layers just don't stick together that well, and the impact resistance isn't as good. So I think there's an optimal amount of carbon fiber if you start adding too much, you start losing impact resistance and layer adhesion. So that's why I like have you guys ever heard of Push Plastic?
Yeah.
No, I
Okay.
haven't.
Okay, so they're like they have like very little branding, very little marketing. They're like a bulk filament manufacturer. And I actually buy the majority of my filament through them. I found them online just doing some searching back when I was getting into 3D printing a couple years ago, and I get most of my stuff through them. They make a carbon fiber nylon that is just a little bit weaker than Nylon X, but it has it's a lot lower cost if you buy it in bulk at least. And it also has better layer adhesion and better impact resistance. So that's my go-to carbon fiber nylon, and I found that it works great.
Cool. All right. So this filament, what temperature are you printing at?
Oh, okay. So that's why you can run into problems with an ender. So I have the nozzle at 270 degrees Celsius when I print with it, which I found is a good temperature. I don't know this for a fact, but I bet you could print it at 260 degrees Celsius in the nozzle, but I haven't done any testing with that, which I need to do. But so I run 270 in the nozzle, and then the really critical thing with carbon fiber nylons is to run the bed at 35 degrees Celsius.
35?
So
really?
I never got carbon fiber nylons to print. Any nylon always warps horribly. It's nasty. So I always said horrible things about them. I could never get it to work. The reason for that is when you go above like 40°C, this is my experience. Other people try higher temperatures. I don't know how to get it to work. I have never gotten it to work. So above like 40°C, the nylon begins to soften just a little bit, and it's just enough where it has no resistance to warping, and then you'll get horrible warping. So if you run your bed at 35°C with a good bed adhesive like glue stick, your part will print beautifully. It won't warp on you at all. It's really amazing stuff. And the nice thing with carbon fiber is it stabilizes the print so you don't get curling on the edges, which is a big problem you can run into with plain nylon. So unfilled nylons like Alloy 910 have some nice properties, but you do get some nasty curling on overhangs because it's not stabilized like the carbon fiber is. So
what printer are you using?
Prusa. I have 3 Prusas, Prusa i3, MK3. So I got great printers. So I've never actually used an ender. I'll have to buy one.
I've got one ender running right now.
You can buy one for like the cost of a replacement part, dude.
Yeah.
I want to buy a Prusa just to run it into the ground. You know, I'm convinced that I could break one. You know?
Oh, yeah, you probably could. But I just found them super reliable, and the firmware and everything is so easy to use that I've never run into any problems. I hate fiddling with software and firmware. It's something I don't like to do. And with the Prusas, I've never had to do that.
Well, you know what? Prusa Slicer, too, is actually a pretty solid slicer. You know, I played with it. I have it on one of my computers here, and you know what? I played with it, and the quality, I mean, like, I can get better prints out of that. I don't use Cura. I use Simplify 3D, so it's a little bit different.
Okay.
But I get better prints with Prusa Slicer than I do at Cura, and I print faster on Prusa Slicer. And I've just always gotten better results, you know, with what I played with here, and that's on Ender 5s and stuff like that. So
I actually used Prusa Slicer because of Hoffman. He was the only one that I saw online promoting Prusa Slicer. Everyone else was saying use Cura. All the videos about settings were
pores, man.
I didn't want to say that, but it seems like a more entry-level program. And everyone uses it because
how much is the Prusa Slicer?
It's free.
It's open source. It's based off of another one of the slicers. I forget which one.
Yeah, Slicer, SLICR, or SLIC3R.
I think that's what it is. Like, Slicer 3R or something. It's based off that, but Prusa Slicer is actually extremely beginner friendly. That's what I like about it. It's super beginner friendly, but it has the advanced mode where you can change all the settings and you can dial it in just where you want it.
They're all like that, though. All slicers are like that. If you're coming in with a blank slate, like if you're learning how to write cursive, like nobody can write a cursive A without knowing how to write a cursive A. So like, if you're just thrown to the wolves and it's like, hey man, Cura doesn't exist, Simplify 3D, Slicer doesn't exist. Learn Prusa Slicer, you're gonna learn it. It's the same thing. Everybody did it with Cura. It's just all about how the interface looks.
Yeah, they do the same thing under the table. I mean, basically they're doing the same job.
For what it's worth, everyone is using Cura because of tree supports. That's the only reason.
I was about to say
that. Tree supports rock.
Yeah.
That's the only reason.
Yeah. Yep. I was about to say that Prusa Slicer needs to add tree supports. So personally, on most of my prints, I design my own supports because I just think it works better. But
Yeah, I print, you know, and you get this, it breaks off in a few seconds, boom, you're done. No fiddling around.
Rails down, always rails down.
Rails down, yeah.
Rails down, man. Rails down all day, man.
I just printed this guy rails up. I don't know.
Well,
see,
it's
rails
like,
down.
you know what? I'm not a big. I don't really care.
I've had
if it's
curl.
nice filament or not. You know, because I mean, you're talking about filament. Even talking about $90 a kilogram, that's cheap. That's not expensive.
Cheap.
You know, for what you get though, you know, you're talking about, you know, I guess from a business standpoint, it's a little different because you're making money with every roll you buy generally, but like that's not too expensive, man. So when you go supports up, I guess it like when you go rails up, it's not really a big deal, but like you can get a frame done rails down in 8 hours. You know, what's rails up 14,
20.
15, 16?
20. You know? Actually, I ran 23 hours, I think. But I
that's
slow.
insane to me for one frame, man. Like that's insane.
There's a lot of detail in the texture. So if you're printing a flat surface on the outer perimeter, I can get frames to print at 15 hours. But you said 8? How are you doing 8? What size?
That's like really fast.
Like this was fast. Like 14. You know,
that's a 2-day print for me right there.
That's a really fast print. You print too fast, you're gonna.
I think I still got it. Hold on.
Don't you get poor layer adhesion from too fast of a print?
But it depends. But faster will result in less layer adhesion.
So, and I think a lot of people on social media. Are we on YouTube right now? Is that where we're at?
Yep.
So, are we gonna get banned if we show frames and shit?
Well, you show frame, but
if it's a firearm, like a complete firearm.
So this isn't. It's not pretty, dude. But so this was printed with a 0.8 nozzle. Push start print to full finished assembly functioning firearm in 4 hours.
4 hours?
You know, it's not
0.8 nozzles are awesome.
It looks like shit, but it functions. My whole goal is how fast can we print a frame? How fast can we get a functioning firearm in our hand from start? I got 4 hours.
I guess
so.
I came up under. So I didn't get into 3D printing until I saw Chairman Juan's work and Booligan. So once I saw what these guys were coming up with, that's when I was like, I think I need a 3D printer. So I started printing Chairman Juan frames, and the aesthetics, the ergonomics, everything about the frame is amazing. So for me, I was always going on what looks the best, because Chairman's goal is always to make an Ender 3 look picture perfect as far as your print quality. So that was always in my mind, like make it look as good as possible. But you're saying is the opposite. You're like, just print the shit as quick as possible.
Well, for me, the print time.
My goal is to get guns in as many hands as possible. There's, you know, granted, Chairman Juan, I mean, he sat down with Peter over at Battlecock Tactical. I mean, when you're doing that, like, I mean, you're talking about, oh, well, this hybrid bevel should be 1/8 of an inch higher or lower. Yeah. You know, so it's a little bit different. He's also pretty, I'm trying to think of the descriptive word, but he's like super detail oriented, Chairman Juan. So like, you know, I mean, he's, you know, I can understand how he's like that. I can't believe he prints rails up, you know, because you got to clean shit up. I don't like that.
He prints 45. Chairman prints 45.
All right, I want to. Right. We're getting down the rabbit hole a little bit. I want to ask each one of you the same questions. So let's go clockwise. Ralph, slicer, you're using the Prusa slicer, right?
Prusa slicer. I've tried Cura a couple times, but my Mac, I guess firmware or software is too new that it won't integrate with Cura. So anytime I slice, it just crashes. So. Oh,
okay, yeah, you got an M1 then.
M1, yeah.
Yeah, so the M1 has an issue with that. Do you use Octoprint at all? No Octoprint.
Too fancy for me, man. No, I don't.
And you're running an Ender 3?
3V2. I'm looking for the S1 when it comes out.
Oh, okay.
I'll get that as the second printer.
And you don't do any design work, right?
I played with Fusion 360, man, but the hour I spent in there trying to modify a step file, I felt like I needed a course or some guidance.
You're better off starting with nothing and not trying to modify a file. That's the best way to learn about it. Like make a fucking square and then be like, I want to put a fucking hole through it. That's the best way to learn Fusion 360.
Retrofitting stuff is horrible. I would no, don't retrofit stuff. That's a nightmare.
You're just chasing a rabbit you're never gonna catch.
Okay, so
playing with other people's problems.
Slicer is Prusa.
Prusa slicer, absolutely.
Okay, no Octoprint?
I run stock Prusas with stock Prusa slicer, except for the nozzle. So yeah, no Octoprint. It's all, I just run stock from the factory pretty much.
And Prusa printer, right?
Yep, Prusa printers.
And so what CAD software? Fusion 360?
I use SolidWorks.
SolidWorks.
So, yeah, that's what I learned on originally. So that's what I've gone with. There's some things I don't care for about the newer versions of it, but that's what I use, SolidWorks.
All right, so I'm going to answer Jordan from GSD Supplies asking, where's John Crump? Jordan, did you forget you bought Black Swan Tactical and Black Swan Media for me and gave it to me? You forgot that? No, that was the joke I made at the beginning of the show. John had some dad duties to take care of, so I'm flying solo.
Don't crash.
Okay, and all right. So 2A 3D print slicer is Prusa slicer, right?
We use Simplify 3D.
Simplify 3D, okay. And no Octoprint, I'm guessing, right?
No Octoprint, man.
And printers, what printers are you using?
Fives, Ender 5s. I got rid of all the Ender 3s. I didn't like the inconsistencies in them, printing production parts and stuff like that. I don't like beds that move back and forth. It just leads, you're talking about printers where you can fart while you're walking by it and it lifts the corner up. Like, you've got a bed going like this at 100 millimeters. Like, it's just going to generate wind. So I don't use any of that shit. So up and down for me. So 5s. I got a 3 Max that I just started playing with. I got another one here. I just have a big nozzle on it though. I just print stupid shit with that.
And for CAD, what do you do?
Fusion 360. I've kind of been like curious as to go down the SolidWorks rabbit hole though. I'm not necessarily so there's a way the reason why is because I've just learned of a way to get it for like $60 a year. It's not the commercial version, but I've kind of, I don't mind adapting and learning new shit. So that, like, who's to say that I don't like SolidWorks more than Fusion 360? I don't like when Fusion 360 doesn't cooperate. I know that. So,
what's that?
Say that again.
What do they not cooperate with, or?
You know what? I don't know. It's just like sometimes you'll be like trying to fillet, do like a fillet or something like that, and it doesn't work. I've had Fusion 360 crash my computer more times than fucking I can count, man.
SolidWorks does the same thing. It's And what's sad is the version from a decade ago, from 2010, was just as bad. I'm not gonna say just as bad, but it had the same problems, and they haven't fixed any of them. So that's what I don't like about SolidWorks. Like, a decade's gone by. Let's get some improvement.
Well, we've been waiting on an update for Simplify 3D for like 3 years now. So like the people who paid are sitting there waiting, and they're like, "We're gonna put an update out. We're gonna put an update out. It's Christmas. We're gonna put an update out." It's like, all right, cool, man. Still waiting on that. There's been like 15 updates for Cura since I've gotten Simplify 3D.
So I'm going to answer the questions I asked all of you. Slicer, I'm using Cure, so maybe I need an education. I'm actually using Octoprint, and I have Octoprint with a webcam with Spaghetti Detective running locally on the network. I've got the AI monitoring the print. And let's see, my printers, I have 2 Ender 3s. I just fired the second one up here. My original printer is an ANET A8 that I heavily modified. And CAD, you're going to laugh. You're going to, make sure you have nothing in your mouth. Nobody's drinking. I use Tinkercad.
You know what? I don't think
Poor fellow.
There's any shame in people using Tinkercad.
I got to move up.
You know what? I did a whole YouTube video, and you know what? Doing the YouTube video was almost as frustrating as actually using it. But I did because Rob Pincus is over here doing shit on Tinkercad, trying to put textures and all sorts of shit. So I did a YouTube video on how to put textures on frames using Tinkercad. And I say it like 9 times throughout the whole video. This is not ideal. This is not the best way to do this. But if you don't know how to do this, this is probably the easiest way to do it.
Rich's printer's a deep fryer.
So that's a joke. I got like 1 or 2 more personal things I want to get out here. So Tim, I find your designs really interesting. Originally, Ivan the Troll did the U-Bolt AR-15. I took that and I remixed it as an AR9, and I print and shot that. And I just think what you're doing is really, a lot of what we deal with in 3D printing. And can I pick this up and show? Anyhow, sometimes you print something one way and it's easier to print, but the strength isn't there. Then you have to rotate it 90 degrees. You print it, it's a little harder to print, and then you have the strength. And I liked what you did with the webbing going back to the buffer tube. I
like that design too.
Yeah. The brace design.
Yeah, that's mad smart, because we're all looking at it. We're like, the buffer tube looks like this, and that's the rest of the frame, and that's how it's always been done. You looked at it and said, whoop, brace right there. Boom.
Yeah, I think I actually did that in YouTube. So when I got started, I started off with 3D printers. I got them because I thought I could maybe make money printing something with them. So I got them back like in early 2020, I guess, January 2020. And printing a lower receiver was something I always wanted to try, but I had never obviously done any 3D printing before. So it took a couple months, and I went online and I looked for a file to print. And actually, this is early 2020, and I'm still surprised this was the case, but the only file I could find was a lower on pin shape. Are you guys familiar with pin shape? It's like a file. Yeah. It's an obscure file sharing website. Anyway, this thing was like kind of a chunky mil-spec lower with no reinforcement, and it was dimensionally not accurate and stuff. So I was like, well, I guess I'll have to design my own. So that's why I got started designing it, and I pretty much designed in a vacuum until I saw the U-bolt lower a couple months later in the year. So the support rib was something I just looked at it and I just said, where can I add more plastic? I had an upper on there. I said, where can I possibly add more plastic? And that was the only spot I could add more plastic.
Yeah, I love that design, man. I think that's super genius, man. It's a good way of thinking.
Very original, yeah. To me, it looks like a wing. Not really like a wing.
The front takedown pins, can you tell us what you did there?
So that is a direct copy of the Wildfire lower. That's all I did. Wildfire, there is a bit of confusion about that, and that's because I don't have an example of it here. But they clamp onto the front right here of your lower, and the entire purpose of the front takedown pin plates is to optimize layer orientation. So a lot of people get confused and think the reason those are there is to replace them. And I am not a believer in replaceable parts. I think it should never break in the first place. That's my position on it. So the reason those are there is strictly to optimize layer adhesion, layer orientation, which is really important. So the lower is printed like this. Your layers are normally running this way, and what will happen is you'll get cracks at the layers. So the plates are printed with the layers running on this plane, so it's optimized so they won't crack and break. And because your layer adhesion is obviously much weaker than your normal maximum material strength that you'll get with a proper orientation. So that's the reason for those plates. I assume that's the reason that the Anderson Wildfire started using them, and I think they had a version before that they used the same plates with. But I assume that's why they started using them, and lots of people said you need to add these plates, so I added them. So that wasn't me. I was just copying the Wildfire, which was pretty brilliant.
Quick question, man. So JSD there said he loves how young the segment of the industry is. How old are you, bro? You look very young.
20.
20. Okay.
Yeah. So not as young as I look.
Right on, bro. Nah,
that's cool. No, that's I was born and raised in New York, and until like 15 years ago when I moved to Florida, I never owned a firearm. So I grew up in New York, the land of no, and got into it heavy after I got down here.
I just started 3 years ago, man. So I'm fairly new to it as well. And I just want to say the title of the video is The Lords of 3D Printing. I don't know how I was added to this roster of lords, but I'm fairly new. I just started back in September. So I'm still kind of learning, but I'm a quick learner. So I do soak up a lot of information. So I want to say thank you for even putting me on that roster there, Rich.
Oh, yeah, no worries. So, and just, I kind of took a hiatus. I got an ANET, I don't know how many years ago, and because I'm a lefty, I would carry like an LCP2 or an LC9S, and the mag release isn't reversible. And if you release the mag, you have a dead gun. So if it's in my left pocket, all I do is bump something, and I'd release the mag. So like, that's it. I'm designing my own lower. And that's how I got back into 3D printing. And then I was just having, in fact, my ANET is still kind of in an odd state. I highly modified it, did like kind of like a Prusa extruder on it that I custom designed, and it's just been giving me fits. So I'm like, I'm just backing away from that, and I'm running 2 Ender 3s right now. So one question to you guys, and I'm going to ask all of you this question. I haven't gotten myself a Christmas present. I was thinking about a Voron, and somebody talked me out of the Voron. A 5+, for a large format. I think Mr. Snow mentioned the Prusa XL instead of the 5+. And somebody else, I forgot who, mentioned the belt-driven printer, the Ender, what is it, Creality, whatever, 30.
The one that's like a belt.
Yeah.
30S.
Yeah, that thing is crazy, bro. Crazy.
So if I was going to, like, what would you guys recommend?
Personally, I've been looking at the 5 Pro, but like I said, the one that realistically I will buy is the S1. I saw the 3D Print General just did a review on it. Looks promising. Looks promising. But definitely a 5, man. I've been looking at the 5. I just don't have enough information to know which one I should or should not get. But I'm
so 5, not the 5+. That's what you're looking at.
5 Pro, I think it's called.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Not 100%, but yeah.
Yeah, the 5+ is the bigger one. The 5 Pro is a standard. It's standard size to an Ender 3. It's just a cube.
So the Plus is the better one.
It's just bigger. It's the same thing. It's just bigger.
Okay.
Unless, I mean, do I have one? No, I don't have one. But like, unless you're gonna sequential print Glock frames, I mean, you don't need a bigger bed. If you want to print like Mando helmets and shit,
right.
That's cool, man. But like I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and most files are designed to be printed on the smaller bed machines anyway.
So there's one called the Invader that's like a PDW style. You actually have to modify the size of the bed in your settings to make it, I think it's 230 by 230 when it's stock 220 by 220.
An Ender 5 bed is 235. It's 235. Where is it?
The Pro or the Plus?
So like this is actually 235 by 235. Stock says it's 220 by 220.
Okay.
So everybody who has an Ender 5, if anybody's watching this and they haven't yet, you have 235 by 235. It's not 220. So you have more build space than they actually advertise, which is foolish if you ask me.
So the Plus is how much bigger?
Isn't it 360 or 350?
300. I think it's 300, 300, and 340 on your Z.
Okay.
I mean, it's substantially bigger. I mean, you're talking about 12 inches. It's almost 12 inches.
Nice.
So no thoughts on the belt printer or the Prusa XL?
The Prusa XL it looks good, but I've only ever actually used the Prusa i3 MK3 just for standard printers, so that's really the only experience I have with it. My only comment would be, don't buy a resin printer. Stick to FDM.
Why does Hoffman Tactical not use Ender 3 V2s?
Because I bought a Prusa, because I actually bought a Prusa originally because I had the Make Magazine Guide to 3D Printing. I just went through that, and they recommended the Prusa, so I bought one. And since I have one Prusa, if I have another printer, it's got to match. So I bought another Prusa. And I got my third. I got a third Prusa. So
you never even considered the Ender 3?
I've considered buying one just to try it, because that's what everybody else has. So I kind of know what my people printing my designs are using.
You can get one on sale for like $100, man. I got one that's going to Cape Gunworks next week, and it was $100, And I think I paid 70 for it. You can get them cheap, man. You just got to find them. I mean,
I got to find a place to put it. It's my problem. I got to find some counter space somewhere.
Yeah, you just keep getting them, dude, and just leave them in the box until you're ready for them, and you just put them in the corner, man, until you need one.
So, okay, Mr. Snow brought up the Prusa XL, or let me go back. Let's see, Ender 5 Plus is 350 by 350 by 400, so that's pretty damn big. The Prusa XL is 360 cubed. So he did also mention that, hey, it's $2,000 for the Prusa XL. So
he's a fucking baller, though, that guy.
The Prusa is not released yet.
It's the same cost as a Creality.
So the Prusa XL isn't released yet, though, is it? They haven't got it out yet, I don't think. Did they release that?
XL, though, is it the XL that just came out? John's watching, so he'll be able to chime in, but I think it is out. I think that's the one that they just released with the enclosure and everything like that.
Okay, I have, for some reason, I haven't seen that. I haven't been out to their site in a while, but they should have sent me an email. I guess I must have missed that.
Actually, John's wrong. I just clicked on Prusa. I'm waiting for the page to load. It says 2,500.
Yeah, that's
and that's semi-assembled.
That's steep, dude.
That's pretty steep.
We're looking for entry-level.
I would never recommend something like that to a hobbyist, man.
Yeah.
Like, somebody just trying to get into it, like, I would never recommend that to somebody.
See, the reason why I even got into it was because it was so cheap. I looked on Micro Center. I was like, $250? This is apparently the best one.
Right.
The 3V2 seemed like the best one in the category that I was looking at, and I went there and I bought it the same day, man. I didn't think twice about it. If it was 2,500 or even $1,000 bucks.
All right, Mr. Snow. Let's see. Once in, let me grab the stream link. Talk among yourselves.
Yeah, Mr. Snow. Mr. Snow should be considered one of the lords of 3D printing. let me swap out with Mr. Snow.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Stay in.
Oh man. Hoffman. So, Nylon, Polymide, Copa. From Polymaker. You have any experience with
Haven't tried that. I've tried quite a few nylons. Let's see. I have tried the Polymaker. I have tried their glass fiber nylon. I did try that. And
fiber.
Polymaker. I tried the Polymaker. It's their PA6 glass fiber nylon.
That's the one that I believe Yeezy told me to use, because I mentioned the Copa nylon and he said just go with the PA6. Because the Copa, apparently you got to get it to a much higher temperature that the Ender 3 can't reach, and it's so abrasive that it messes up the nozzle.
The glass fiber is pretty abrasive too. I don't know, but I have not tried the Copa, so I could not really say anything about it. Overall, I am not pleased with glass fiber nylons. I know everybody says glass fiber is better because Glock uses it, right? But the Glock injection molds, they don't 3D print, so it's totally different. I've just found carbon fibers have almost the same impact resistance as glass fibers, and they're just stronger, better layered adhesion. They print better. So I think carbon fibers hands down better than glass fiber, but I may be wrong. I just bought a roll of it's not here yet, but the glass fiber nylon by Tollerman 3D. They just released it. I don't know if you've seen that. It's pretty steep. It's like $120 a kilogram, but they normally do good work. So we'll see how that works.
Okay, yeah, the most I've spent recently is 80 on the
Hi, Mr. Snow.
Hey, Mr. Snow.
Hello.
That's a big improvement.
With the pup?
Yes, we're out here with the pup.
We got the pup.
He 3D printed that dog, by the way.
Absolutely.
It's not white. He couldn't have.
So yeah,
white.
The Prusa XL. The Prusa XL start at like 2,000. But you can get them more expensive. You can get up to 5 print heads to print individual tool changers from Prusa XL. I've already ordered one. It'll be here in like 8 months. There's a lot to that. Those are awesome. I've got the Voron 2.4, still work in process. I've got like CR10s, Ender 3s, and the Mark 3S from Prusa.
Okay.
So, all right, CR10 versus the 5 Plus. What's your thoughts?
Get the 5 Plus Pro. So
really?
if you want a large, or so there's like 3 or 4 like large format 3D printers that I do with at the moment. I think your basic entrance is going to be the 5 Plus Pro. That's the one I would go with. Step it up from there. You could go with some of the Tronxy. Like Tronxy has like a 500 cube print volume on one of their builds.
Yeah.
But I mean, the bigger you get, the more problems you're going to have. The beauty of the Prusa XL is the fact that their heated build plate is actually made up not of a single piece, but of multiple smaller build plates. And so as you're laying out your 3D printed object, you can actually only use portions of the bed instead of the whole thing. and it prevents a lot of warping and uneven heating. It's awesome.
I'm gonna have to order one, but 8 months is such a long time to wait.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
2,500
I'm
is
just
not
gonna
horrible
drive
for
up to
the
Mr.
machine.
Snow's place and visit.
I need it now.
Well, and they're still developing it. Like I said, I am really interested about the tool changer. So this will be Prusa's first tool changing 3D printer, and that's going to be really cool.
Okay.
Now, a
So-
question you got to ask yourself, of course, is do you need a large format 3D printer? That's a lot of people think size is really what you need, but for most parts, just a 200 and something millimeter bed will work fine for them.
Yeah, it really depends on what you're doing. So, I mean, some of the stuff that I'm doing, particularly when I'm getting into some of the bolt action chassis work that I'm doing, I need a large format printer. Most people do not.
Exactly. So you got to look at what you need, and because the big printers take up more space and it can have more problems.
And they're way harder to level the bed. There's tons more issues. The bigger the printer you have, the more challenge you're going to have to be consistent.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So in my humble opinion here, I think for anyone that's looking to get into it, maybe not go towards these 2,000.
Oh no, I would never recommend that.
Maybe start off with the Ender 3 for $100.
Yeah, Ender 3, I would say is the gateway
Pincus
drug.
just bought his 6-year-old daughter a kids printer. You know,
The toy box.
The toy box. Dude, that thing printed a cat standing up on its legs with no support in like 30 minutes. And it was like super clean quality. I was like, why are we paying hundreds of dollars for this shit? And this little girl's got like one that can print shit without supports. I'm like, this is ridiculous, man. The bridging on it was insane.
Oh, man. Yeah, the technology is just getting better and better, man.
Every day.
What's going on here? Jordan says, don't tell me how to live my life.
Listen, there's only one thing that I ever tell Jordan, and I will keep telling him every time I have the opportunity, that Patnos needs to make a 17L slide. That's all I got to say. So, you know.
And they need to offer it in white standard. Instead of like black nitride, just make them white.
That's right. All Patmos slides should be white, and they need a 17L. So only comment, and I will say also that I absolutely adore the Hoffman design. Thank you, buddy. My dog just went poop in the backyard. My children are informing me. I'll take care of it in a minute. Thanks, bud. The Hoffman design. So I think the Hoffman design, I think, is the only confirmed lower to take a deer harvest.
So I have to contest that.
Right there,
Oh, he's contesting.
So I don't know when I saw the podcast. I watched the podcast that you did a little while ago here, but several months back, a gentleman I've been emailing did send me a photograph of his LR308 lower he had printed with the deer he had shot. So I don't have any evidence here, but I can say that someone did shoot one like 90 days ago. So
he needs a YouTube channel then.
So I can say that I don't know if I don't have any evidence here, but I can contest that a little bit.
Man, he should be flexing that. I'd be all over that, dude. I'd be like, yeah, man, just took a deer with my 3D printed gun.
All right, so John, we got to go on a hog hunt with our 3D printed guns.
So AG Cast is in the chat, and I think he has got a hog hunt scheduled with a Set Me build with Citizen Hush down in Texas. So I think AG is going to be the one that's going to take the hog.
Shout out to AG Cast, man.
I just got
Cool.
I just got some Apple tags in, and I'm going to. It's like one of my next projects is to make like tracer arrows with Apple tags. I gotta print. I gotta print the adapter and work the weight out and everything. But
so I thought you were gonna say something different. My daughter has like 5 Apple tags now. I use a Mac. I'm not an Apple fanboy. I'm Android everything else, or Samsung. But what a bunch of, and I'm bleeping out the bad words in my mind, they give you this giant pill without even a keychain loop on it. So it's like $30 for the stupid pill, and then you got to buy a $30 thing so you can hang it on something. I'm like, Middle finger salute. I printed my own.
That's Apple for you, yeah.
Yeah, so we can't hunt, we can't track with dogs here in Rhode Island. So if you shoot a deer and it takes off and you lose it, you know, I tracked a deer for 2 days this year and I lost it. Biggest buck I ever shot. And you know, I'm like, all right, cool. Well, that's not happening again. So I'm gonna make mounts for the back of an arrow. So even if it goes through, it's gonna like detach. I gotta work on the design, but it's gonna detach inside the animal, and then you just go grab it.
All right, so the problem with the AirTag is it needs another Apple device around to broadcast. So you've got to be within Bluetooth distance of the AirTag.
Well, if you're tracking a deer and you can't get within Bluetooth distance,
okay,
you probably shouldn't be in the woods.
If that, or you have a drone that you fly around with an iPhone on it.
You can't do that here either, because if you end up over private property, you're in trouble, man. You know?
What's the ruling on taser arrows? Just out of curiosity.
I know. You know what? It's a good point, dude. See, I'm trying to go with what Bobby over at Zero Fucks given. I'm trying to take a deer with one of those, but it's like, all right, cool. Do you go out for like muzzle loader with that? Is that technically archery? Do you just go out and just send it, man? Like, you know, so I'm trying to figure that out before next year, man.
You're mute, Mr. Snow. You're mute.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm dealing with puppies and children, so we're playing outside. So I'm going to take off, guys. Thanks for letting me in. I just had to jump on for some of those things. And yes, all of you are lords of the 3D printed realm, and look forward to you. Keep up all the good work, guys.
Right on.
Thanks, man.
Mr.
Cool.
Oh, epic. So back to the printing topic here. Hoffman, I've been doing some tests as far as annealing HTPLA, and this morning I ran across a video where the guy was annealing different types of PLA. He came to the conclusion that standard cheap PLA anneals better than the expensive HTPLA, which is crazy. I was not expecting that.
Now, what kind of testing was he doing, though, as far as like impact resistance and strength?
He was doing this thing where he would put it on the shelf and then just hang a weight and see how long it would take for it to break.
Okay.
I think he was doing some impact testing as well. But
he was getting kind of a feel for it.
Standard PLA anneals better than stuff that's meant to be annealed.
The only reason I see to anneal PLA is simply to improve the impact resistance, because something a lot of people don't realize is PLA is actually structurally like one of the best filaments out there. It has better impact resistance than all nylons, pretty much. It has better impact resistance than everything that you can 3D print, except like some of their super high temperature filaments can print. Like PEEK has better impact resistance just because it's so strong. But PLA Plus is also really strong. It's like almost as strong as a carbon fiber nylon. Its only drawback, and this is really its only drawback, is that it has poor heat resistance. So annealing will fix that.
Yes.
And that's really the only reason you do it.
From my experience, that is what I have encountered. And I'll show here quickly. So the weak spot here in the frame is right where the recoil spring is. I don't know if you could see that, but pretty much the recoil spring melted into the frame. The slide lock wouldn't work anymore, and the thing just gave out. So for me, I've been doing annealing tests where I want to be able to get this frame to the point where it can handle more than 200 rounds without having that weak spot there, because the barrel is locking onto the slide lock, creates a lot of heat in that area there. So I think if we can anneal to the point where it can withstand without failure right there, we wouldn't have to like redesign rails or anything, because I've been talking to Riptide and they're actually thinking about redesigning the rails specifically to support the recoil spring in that area. But I think if we could just anneal the frame to have it be more heat resistant, we wouldn't even have that problem in the first place.
So are you annealing or are you remelting?
I am putting it in sand and baking it.
At what temperature roughly?
2 to 230, somewhere around there.
Celsius or Celsius?
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit.
Okay, Fahrenheit. Great. Okay.
I don't think convection ovens go up to 230 C.
Yeah.
Yes, that sounds pretty. Yeah. Okay. So that is about the right temperature, but you really got to support it in the sand.
Yeah, it's pretty packed in there. Yeah.
So as I said, the only test I've done with annealing was in the hot water, and the part did warp. And I actually did a bunch of test samples too. The parts shrunk and warp, but they also, when I actually did testing, they had gotten weaker and lost layer adhesion. And I think that was because the water had degraded the plastic, the PLA, and that's why it got weaker. But I don't know exactly if that was the case or not. So I have to do more testing with annealing. So
from my experience, it also has to do with time. You can't heat it too quickly and you can't cool it too quickly. So that's why the sand packed around it helps. So you stick it in there for an hour and it gradually raises the temperature and holds it. And then you take it out and let it cool for a couple hours and it'll bring it back down to room temperature. But from my understanding, that is what makes the annealing work.
Yeah, because you're changing it from amorphous to crystalline, right? So
exactly.
that takes time and the right temperature. It's just like, hardening. If you're doing anything with steel, you're trying to harden a tool or something.
Correct. Yeah.
It's different, but it's the same kind of concept. So yeah, but I have very little experience, so I really probably can't add much to that.
So Tim, we got a question for you. So let's see. Have you tried other AR-15 designs like the U-Bar or the Firebolt?
Yes. So I had the only two. I've tried two AR-15s. I tried the Hellfire lower. Which is the one they put that, just like my rib, they put that bolt on it. They put like a angled bolt to reinforce it. So I tried the Hellfire lower, and I've also printed the U-bolt. And the Hellfire is too there's too much. It's not designed for 3D printing. I'll put it that way. It's like designed like you were going to machine it, like you're going to mill it out with subtractive manufacturing. It's not really optimized for 3D printing the way all the geometries are designed. So it did break. I found it to be pretty weak because it was just too thin and everything. But I printed the original U-bolt lower and it was really strong. So awesome. The U-bolt's awesome lower. I think it's a little it's a little wide in back, but that's how they get the strength. Yeah. So
kind of bulky.
Those are the two I've printed. U-bolt U-bolt passes the test. It's definitely strong.
Yeah, and I've got a U-Bolt AR-9, and I don't know how many rounds I have through it, but I've got a number of rounds through it. And I know Control Pew, he put, like, I think 300 rounds through that design.
Nice.
So, Liberty Not Licensed is asking about sintered metal. So I'm assuming none of us have any experience with sintered metal.
Yeah, so I don't think anyone does, but I have looked into it because it is obviously sounds like a really cool idea. And I see referring to like a laser sintered or a method that where you use FDM to print a part and then you remove the binder and then sinter it, which either one is very expensive. But the problem I assume he's referring to, I forget the method. There's a company. Is it Flash Forge or it's Mark
Flash
Forge
is out there. Yeah.
Okay, it's one of them. They sell the printers that do it, but you have to basically it's a filament that's like 95% metal and then 5% binder, and it's probably a pain to print with. But you print your part with that, and then you wash the binder away. You put it in an oven, heat it to the right temperature, and sinter it, which sounds super easy, right? Like you can just print it on your modified ender, throw it in the oven, and sinter it. But the problem is, to sinter a metal requires very, very precise temperature control. Because if you go at all too hot, you're going to melt the metal, and there goes your part. And if you go too cold, it's not going to sinter. So those ovens, from what I can tell, run from, generally speaking, they're around $30,000 and up. So it looks good on the front end, but because of the extremely high, you need a very high temperature oven, like 1200 degrees Fahrenheit probably for aluminum, I'd imagine, and you requires very precise temperature control. So that's a very, very specialty oven, and they're very expensive. So that's the problem with sintering. Awesome technology, I'm sure, but it's pricey.
Thanks for cluing me in. I had no idea what he was talking about. That's you learn something new every day, you know.
So I got a question for all of you. What kind of bed do you use?
Great question. So I use the Prusa satin powder coated sheet, and they make 3 powder coated sheets, all of which I've used. I've also used the Garolite. You guys familiar with Garolite? It's like the glass bed. So I've used Garolite as well, and I found that the smooth PEI sheet, which Prusa sells and which a lot of other companies use on their printers, is just too fragile. It breaks. It's easy to damage. Prusa's texture powder coated sheet, nothing stuck to it, but they're Prusa's satin powder coated sheet, so it's PEI. It's been powder coated onto a steel sheet. Parts stick to it really, really well, including like nylons, and it's like indestructible. I've never broken one. So that's my favorite sheet.
Is that a magnetic?
Yep, it's magnetic. So that's I can nothing to complain about. Awesome print bed. Love to stick to it, and it also is like indestructible. The Garo light sheet I used, everyone says it's perfect for nylon. I found it to conduct heat poorly, number one, and number two, the parts actually didn't stick to it that well, or they stuck too much, so I didn't like it.
Okay, Ralph, I know you use glass, right?
Well, so the V2 comes with a two-sided bed. At first, I was printing on the rough side with glue stick, and I found it nearly impossible to remove the print without having to scrape it. So I flipped it over and I started printing on glass. So I'll just wipe it down with some rubbing alcohol and a microfiber cloth, get it 100% clean. And I've had great luck with PLA Plus sticking at 60 degrees Celsius. But from this HT PLA I've been messing with, not so great. So I put down some masking tape, and it actually works pretty good. Zero warping with the masking tape. But yeah, normally I print on glass.
Yeah, I use painter's tape for TPU shit, and it works awesome.
Yeah, masking tape works.
I print mostly on glass. I just picked this up, but I don't have a fucking printer to put it on, and I'm too lazy to fucking switch it just for the fucking sake of research. But anybody familiar with like B3D Customs?
Nope,
So
I haven't heard of them.
Brant, the owner, is a good friend of mine, and I bought this from him recently. It's made out of stainless, but it's like a flexible, like so you can kind of pop shit off.
Oh.
And he knows his shit, so he was like, I use this on everything, and he fucking sells them like a ton of them. So like I bought one, I was like, I think it was like $50 shipped or something like that, but I haven't used it yet. But it seems like super nice, man. It's like super rigid. So,
and it's
but
just
I print on
stainless
fucking glass. I'm the same way, man. This is how they sell the bed. I print on this side, If you use
on
the
glass
side, you get better adhesion.
me too.
I do have a couple that I do print on this side though, just because I flipped them because I wanted that texture on the bottom.
Yeah. So AGCast said you're supposed to wait for the bed to cool down. Yes, I always do. And printing on glass when your bed is cool, it literally just pops right out with zero effort. But with the glue stick,
if you're printing anything that's high temp too, if anybody's familiar with Vision Miner, they do the nanopolymer adhesive.
Yep, I use that for all of my prints, and it honestly I think glue stick is almost as good, but for like polycarbonates, I found that it's like I think it gets better adhesion, though honestly glue stick is really, really close. But I do use the Vision Miner stuff for all my prints, and it does work quite well.
Yeah, I get
so.
Dude, I was doing the beta testing for that. I was one of the guys. I'm like actually in the fucking commercial. It's fucking hilarious.
It is funny.
I got like a bunch of bottles for free. You know what I mean? So like that's what I use. And like, you know what? Again, like when you're talking about costs, I mean, I think it's what, $50 a bottle or something like that. Is that how much it is? It's like 50 or 60 bucks a bottle.
It's like 60 or 70, but yeah, it's up there.
Like you're up, dude. I mean, I run that on like all my printers, and like I go through like a bottle a year maybe.
I do probably like 2 weeks worth of printing before I put more on the bed. So I don't clean my beds for like 2 weeks in a row. So yeah, you use it very, very slowly, and it does seem to last.
You can use 3D gloop too. I haven't and for anybody who's sober and doesn't do drugs or anything like that, this stuff right here give you a pretty solid buzz, man, if you're not in a well ventilated area. But yeah, it says like on the bottle when you're reading through and vetting through all the things and ways that can kill you, it does say you can use it for bed adhesion. So like, it's pretty solid. I haven't used it yet though.
Wait, what is
for
this?
bed adhesion? It says be generous, not excessive, but this stuff's not too bad. If you're gluing parts together, this is basically like if you glued two parts together, it basically turns it into like it was printed together. Like you can't fucking snap it. It's like almost impossible.
And is that with ABS or PLA?
So they make it for all different ones. This one's PLA. They have like I think they have an HT PLA one. They have an ABS one.
That's why it's so powerful. It's got to attack ABS. It's got to attack PLA and kind of dissolve it. And that requires some pretty nice chemicals. So
yeah.
That's why.
I mean, it freaking smells like fucking gasoline.
Lemonol, I think. Lemonol is what they call it. It's one of the
but
solvents
it's like
they use.
Stupid thick too. It looks like rubber cement.
Right on.
All right, we're getting close to the end here. I think I'm going to have all of you guys back because a lot of content here, a lot we didn't cover. As far as beds, I use a magnetic bed. So I love the magnetic bed because you just peel it off and then you just peel the part away from the bed. But which leads me to the next quick question: auto bed leveling. You guys auto bed leveling?
Prusa, of course. I can't imagine manual. Sounds like a nightmare.
For what it's worth, I don't have a time limit. I don't know about the other guys. We can keep going a little longer if you'd like, Rich. But so I don't. I find that I have to level my bed probably once every few weeks. When I level it, it stays leveled. But I do the piece of paper trick at all the corners. So no, I don't have an auto bed leveler. I'm not baller.
Yeah, I just eyeball everything. You know, I just like
He said eyeball.
I just eyeball everything.
All right.
Know?
It's not as precise as most people
10
think.
to 12 machines a day, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like over the course of, you get really good at that shit. So it's just like, all right.
Oh, I'll something will happen like with the magnetic because I'm not like jackhammering on the bed with a freaking chisel. You know, my bed level is almost always perfect, even though I don't have auto bed leveling. Yeah. But I'll start a print and I'll see it's off, and I'll just play with the wheels and get it right while it's doing the first layer. Right. Oh. So next question: raft, skirt, brim. What do you guys do?
Hold on, I'm sorry. So you level it while it's printing?
Yeah, I'll print a raft, and if I see the raft is like not going down right, I'll adjust it while it's printing.
Don't use rafts, man.
So I've used the raft one time ever just to try to get better layer or bed adhesion.
Better it's sticking to the bed, yeah.
So it kind of helps, especially with the Glock frames because they have these little tabs here and back here. Mm-hmm. So if you print like a 2-layer raft, it kind of helps, but I usually don't. Brim, I'll usually do like an 8mm brim depending on what it is. If it's a bigger print, I'll take it down to like a 4 or 5mm brim. But,
so I found that slicer generated brims are normally too thin to really do any good. Unless like if you're printing something with a lot of fine features in the bed, then yes, it can help. But as far as trying to like keep warping down in the first few layers, I normally actually just design into my part an actual like brim that'll be like 16,000 thick or something. That's 2 layers. So it'll put 2 actual layers down, and I find that helps. So that's what I normally do. But as far as using a raft, rafts are a nightmare to clean up, and they actually don't buy you much. If you're using a raft, you can probably just turn your bed temperature down and achieve the same thing. So. Yeah, rafts. I would not recommend rafts. Now,
okay,
something
I think a lot of people. The thing about printing is a lot of people don't want to take the time to actually learn how to do it. Like my inbox is full of people who are like, "I want to print guns, man." I'm like, "All right, cool, man. Learn how to print. Print this. Learn how to use your machine." And they're like, "I just want to print guns." I'm like, "All right."
They want to push print and have a gun come out the other end.
Fine. I'm all for that, man. If you want to print as many guns as possible, you got to learn how that shit works because every time you ask me a question, I'm not gonna fucking answer it, So like, if you learn, like I'm like, dude, I'll tell people all the time, your bed leveling, as long as it's close. People are like, like Ralph said, the piece of paper. A lot of people live and die by that. I don't think that's the case, man. Like as long as your first layer settings are solid, like a lot of slicers, it's standard to do like 120% or or even larger for your first layer. They want you to do like a nice thick layer. I do like 100 or like 95 sometimes.
Yeah.
If I want something not to lift, I jam that shit into the bed, man. So it's not going anywhere.
Thin first layer, and the other thing is printing your first layer is really, really slow. Like I always use 10 millimeters per second. Also really helps. But yeah, it's going too thin on the first layer.
I'll do like on a 60 millimeter, I'm at like 35%. So like, what is that? That's like 20 millimeters, dude, a second or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's slow. Like the first layer is slow.
Yeah, slower the better, really. Just however much time you have.
Can I answer the comment here? Just because I'm
new? I was going to get to that.
So I'm still technically new. So I'll go from my perspective of only a couple months ago. If you buy an Ender 3 and I start to print once it's set up, or do I need anything else? So the hardest part for me was actually building the thing. It takes a lot of effort.
What? The
to
Ender
get the
3,
rollers
it builds
perfect.
itself.
You know what? The five is worth the extra money just for the setup, dude.
So
I built one of those in like 15 minutes on a live one.
Oh, it took
Oh,
me like
shoot.
2 hours because I was trying to get the rollers perfect, and it wasn't really. I was trying to make it like perfect, like the dude in the video, but so the hard part, building the damn thing, and then the second hard part is learning the software, learning the settings, test printing, because we want it to happen quickly. But when you sit there and you're like,
I hate that cat, dude. I
24
hate that
hours.
cat.
When the print time says 24 hours, you're sitting here like, what the fuck? I gotta wait a whole
Who
day?
prints things that short? I'm
That's
like
when-
3-4 days
that's why
in.
everybody gets 2 printers, because you got to get one, and then you're like, all right, cool. Here's my first long print.
3.
Here's my first long print. All right, cool. I want to design something, or I want to print something else quick. Oh wait, I got to wait an entire day.
Yeah.
No, I think I
That's
got
why
5 or
everybody
6
gets
more
2,
days
man.
to go on this print.
Yeah. So for me, it took me like a month till I got really comfortable with it. But within a week, I was familiar with the terms and with slicing and all that, and where support needs to go or where it doesn't, where it's not really necessary. You know,
I think there's a lot of good information out there. Control Pew has a guide, so if you go to his website, and sorry to a 3D print, but
keep showing this cat. What's up with this cat?
so that's on the Ender 3. I just finished slapping together my Ender 3 yesterday. I've had this Ender 3 for I don't know how long. I did most of the assembly.
With it, right?
Right.
Okay.
And so on the SD card, the micro SD card, they have a couple of test objects, and they give you like a couple of yards of filament. Well, the filament only lasted that much, so I had to hot swap my filament.
The reason I don't like that is because it doesn't necessarily show you anything wrong with your printer. That thing is designed to be ran like that. That G code is designed to run on a machine that's like all jagged and doesn't even, it's not even assembled properly. You know,
It's designed to look good.
Or a perfect owl, and then you go to print something, and it's just completely messed up. You know, it's designed like that. That's why it prints so slow too. What's it take, like 6 hours?
Nah, I think it took like 2 hours to print.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, dude. It's like 10% infill.
So I think in order to take the so my calibration cubes are not proper. They're off by like 0.02 or no 0.2 or 0.1. And apparently you have to mess with some E-steps, or you got to do some E-step calibrations. And I haven't gotten to that level yet. So I got the 3D Print General's book, just came in yesterday. He gives a great breakdown, man. I even did a little tab at the top here, but step by step on how to calibrate the E-step. So I will be doing that. I'm going to take my printing to the next level. Maybe I'll get to some
people don't realize, though, is on these cheap machines like the Ender 5s, Ender 3s and stuff like that, they can only hold a tolerance to like 4 thousandths. You know, I'm going to say thousands because we're in America here, and that's what people understand.
Yeah.
You know, but like 4 thousandths is like this sheet of paper right here. That's what you're getting for a tolerance. You can do all that all you want, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to learn how to do that, but doing that isn't necessarily going to help you so much, because when you go, say you print a square, the next time you print a square, it might be different by a couple thousandths. Like, they can only hold so much tolerance.
Yeah.
So that it's an interesting subject, trying to get everything scaled right. And what I do normally is I actually will just go ahead and print an actual part. I know it takes time to print a part and you waste some plastic, but I actually print a part, then I try to fit it, and then I'll just adjust my slicer settings and then go from there. So I have Prusa's obviously, but I think the best thing to do is to print a real life part so you can kind of understand what you're really doing, because when you're putting little calibrations and cubes and stuff, it's easy to get too abstracted and trying to get everything perfected. And because of what 2A 3D print you just mentioned, a printer has tolerances, and with a little calibration cube like that, you can get buried in the tolerances trying to get it perfect, and you'll just be chasing your tail basically. So I think it's just print a real part, try it for fit, and then adjust settings as necessary.
And tolerance on a lower, even like a high quality like rifle lower, something from BCM. I know they're not like the greatest, but they're all right. You know, they're pretty solid quality, dude. But their tolerances on most of those dimensions are 20 thousandths. When they're machining things like that, nobody's running anything tighter than that, because you'd be throwing shit in the scrap bin every other part. You know?
most parts don't require nearly the precision that a lot of people think they do. It's not that, like some things do matter, but most things are not that critical. You can put them in a lot of different places.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why we can.
All my builds work. They run. I mean, sure.
Yeah,
I have
exactly.
to re-drill the hose for the frame, or I may have to sand a little bit here and there, but they all function.
Yeah, I think that the holes are probably the tightest tolerance that you're going to get on a printed, like say like a Glock frame or something like that. That's pretty much everything else, dude, is wide open. And you're looking at, you're talking about, when I say plus or minus 20, just so people are watching, a piece of paper is 4 thousandths. You're talking about the thickness of 5 pieces of paper stacked on top of each other. That's nothing. That's such a small, minuscule distance. Like, there's
little.
It's rarely going to matter.
The only time anything, as you said earlier, anything that is more critical than that is simply your hold. On a lower, it's probably your trigger hole and your hammer hole are going to be your only 2 holes, and the rear takedown pin is important too. But those holes are the only thing that you have to make sure you get them right, or you can run into problems. But other than that, there's lots of room for movement.
I mean, we just did that when we were at the build class. When we were doing the build class, we had I think it was about 25 people come in Pennsylvania at the gun show and build guns. And you know what? It cringes me how many people, even with my jig, botched their holes. One guy used 2 jigs. I don't even know how you physically ruin 2 jigs. He's like, oh man, I think this thing's fucked up. I'm like, no, I just think you're retarded. But people got oval shaped holes, but they still worked. Yeah.
Bro.
I'm like, dude, it's a Glock, man. It's a brick with a trigger.
I had to leave because watching all these noobs butcher these frames was killing me inside. I was like, I can't. I wanted to do it for them. I was like, no, get out of here. I'm out of here.
Well, to be clear, I didn't drill anybody's holes and mill anybody's tabs for them.
No, yeah, you have to sit there and watch them do it and be like, no, you're messing it up.
Yeah. I mean, I brought all these rotary tools. I brought rotary tools for everybody, and at the end of the day, still, I found this when we were cleaning up. Everybody's got rotary tools, nice flex shafts and stuff, and still, I found this when I was cleaning up. I'm like, who did this? How do you do this?
Yeah, flex shaft with the Dremel is the way to go. Flex shaft all day.
But yeah, I mean, the tolerances, I mean, they're Glocks, they're guns, dude. Especially ARs, there's a lot to play with as far as tolerance goes, and you can make that shit work, dude. You could fill that shit with plastic, dude, and re-drill a hole.
JB Weld.
JB Weld. JB Weld in there, dude. You can turn an airsoft gun into a real gun. I think people kind of put it on a pedestal, and they need to be like, all right, cool. How do I turn this into a gun?
Yeah, exactly. It's guns or well, this is not true for all guns, obviously, but guns like an AR-15 and a Glock are 2 relatively simple weapons. They're really easy to put together. They're really simple, and I was shocked. This is the first Glock I've ever built. I just printed this 2 days ago. I decided to do a Glock because I needed a new pistol, and I was shocked how easy the lower and the slide was to put together. I really was thinking that it was going to be more to it. It was going to be more complicated, more springs. But there's no springs in this. It was
I was shocked.
It was super easy.
One Glock.
Wow.
So Hoffman, how come you printed the V1 Chairman Juan frame and not one of the V2s?
This is the FMDA 17.2 or whatever it is one, I think.
That's the original Chairman Juan stipple.
Yeah, this was where did I download this from? I downloaded this from over on Odyssey. Yeah. I downloaded from over on Odyssey, and I assumed it was the latest one. I don't know. This was it's Ivan's lower, I think.
You should see some of the newer Chairman Juan frames, man. They're dope. You definitely need a Chairman Juan frame in your life. The ergonomics, the way it fits,
so much better.
Hand, amazing.
I'll have to try. I was pretty impressed by this stippling, honestly. Wow, that's pretty impressive that the printer pulled that off so well.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I don't know how they designed that, but
it's a 6 gigabyte pack. I think he has 156 different variations of frame sizes, grip stipples, grip length. 2A 3D print was sitting there holding a 26 with a 33 round magazine extension.
The guy needs to find something to do with his time.
That's what he does, man. That's what he does.
That's what he does, yeah. That's what he does.
All right, so I got a couple of questions before we close out, and I only want to go like another 15 minutes. I got to feed the family here, which is me and my wife.
Okay.
I got to work the microwave.
Rich's kids are freaking starving over here while he's playing on YouTube.
Nah, my daughter is she's 19. She's on her own, at least today. But so everybody has to share their channels, and we got a question. Let's see, is Tim gonna come to the next Oaks get together?
Never heard of that. Where is that?
Okay, so that was. If you don't know, JSD Supply, who is the sponsor of the show, they had an announcement, and all of us got together in Oaks, Pennsylvania. Was it 2 weekends ago?
Yeah.
Right? It was 2 weekends ago. So JSD as a baller. So this is a great story. If you didn't watch the show yesterday, we covered it. Jordan was on the show. The Attorney General of Pennsylvania got his shorts in a wad about 80%ers being sold at the show. So he contacted the owner of Eagle Arms Shows in Pennsylvania and said, hey, it's not a good idea to have the 80% guy there. And so Jordan got kicked out of the show, basically, JSD Supply. Yeah. So in the baller move of the century, he bought the show.
Bought it out.
I had heard of the thing.
Kicked out of that show, though. No bullshit. The fucking guy, because I didn't get a lot of time to walk around. I walked around a little bit on Sunday with my son, but like, there was
the cookie guy
selling Strike 80s there for $500.
That's what they're going for.
And he had CL frames for $260. I'm like, dude, you are out of your goddamn mind.
That's what they're going for, bro. They're not made anymore. They're discontinued.
You know what?
There's no more supply.
I got my hands on a Strike 80 for a customer. Like, I was doing some stippling on it, dude, and I was like, you know what, dude? I like the P80 ergonomics better, man.
There's no more supply, though. That's why the price just keeps going up.
Hey, it's free market.
Bucks, dude. You go buy a Gen 3 Glock for less than that.
So I've seen them go as high as 8, 9. I mean, they're definitely expensive.
Jesus Christ.
That's nuts. Nuts.
No, thank you.
Price for the customer, not for the product.
Yeah.
Right.
Dude,
get what you can for it.
It's like, if you can sell somebody on that, dude, more power to you, dude.
Amen.
I did. I put a few of them
on a frame, dude, and then botching the holes.
I put a few of them on my website. I did a white Louis Vuitton Strike 80 pattern, $600. They sold out instantly.
Yeah, you know what? I did a base plate. I did a back plate to match that frame. Somebody, you know what? I'm not even bullshitting, dude. The guy hit me up and he was like, "Yo, I need a back plate for this," and I was like, "Yo, how much did you pay for that?"
$600.
Like, I can't remember what he told me. Whatever it was, $600. I'm like, dude, that's fucking absurd.
So the frame is costing.
I mean, it has Cerakote and laser work, so I mean, you're not gonna get any complaints out of me, dude. I mean, I sell shit for that like that all the time, but like, I'm like, you're out of your goddamn mind.
They bought it though. They bought it.
Yeah, dude. And you know what? He's probably happy with it too, man.
So, Hoffman, to kind of steer away here, I'm curious, what buffer setup do you use in your AR9?
So I use a standard mil spec buffer spring, and I use the CAC. Yeah, buffer spring. And I use the CAC Industries 8-ounce solid steel buffer, and I haven't had any bolt bounce problems. I haven't had any issues with it. So they have, I know, a heavier weighted one, which is probably better for full auto. But
the shaking reciprocating weights I find to be a little more reliable. I had I wanted to call it a double tap, but with the buffer you're talking about, the 8-ounce CAC buffer, standard AR spring, I was doing
which bolt are you running?
FM9 Foxtrot.
Okay. 9. So I'm running the CAC bolt. So the CAC bolt and the CAC buffer together is just like half. It's like a pound and a half total weight. So the weight of your bolt also is going to matter. So your bolt might be lighter weight. So the overall weight's what really matters. So like a pound and a half is what I'm running. And
what people might not understand is that on an AR-15, the standard bolt carrier, the buffer is it 2.5 or 3 ounces, and that's because on the AR round the bolt locks up. When it's running an AR-9, you're doing direct blowback, so you need that extra mass.
Exactly. So on an AR-9, the only thing keeping your bolt closed is actually the mass. It's not even the spring. That mass is the only thing keeping that bolt closed. And I was running on my AR9. I wanted, before the 8-ounce buffer came in, I was running like a 3-ounce standard AR-15 buffer, whatever they are, like 3 ounces, and I got 12 rounds off, and the 13th round ended in a case separation, which like blew the whole side of the lower out. So that's because the chamber is just unlocking, basically opening up too soon. So you got to run a heavy buffer, and I've got like 224 rounds now with no problems at all with the 8-ounce CAC buffer. So I'm pretty pleased so far.
To follow up on this gentleman's question, though, the next Oaks Gun Show is February 10th. February 10th to the 12th. I don't believe there's a meetup planned or anything like that. We'll be down there doing another class.
Cool.
But I don't think there's a meetup planned. I think that was like more of like a December holiday kind of ball out because Jordan had just bought the gun show type thing. But there is another one in February.
Yeah, so I probably will not be going. That's pretty far. I'm not a big traveler, so.
So I was showing the.
You're really not a big traveler. I rode up from Florida. What do you mean?
So this is a blown out AR9 malfunction here, out of battery detonation.
Yep. Mine was even uglier.
Mag blew out the bottom. There was like an explosion in my face. It actually happened like 3 times, and it was because I kept playing with different springs, different weights, and then I realized if you're using a standard buffer, you need to add a spacer in the back to kind of time the whole thing. And I played enough with AR9s to the point where I found the most reliable setup is an H3 standard buffer. Well, not standard. It's an H3, 5.4 ounces, I believe.
Yep.
308 carbine spring with a Spikes tactical spacer, which can be replaced by like $1.75 in quarters behind the buffer. I'm serious. I'm serious. The quarter trick does work. But that seemed to be the most reliable setup for me on any AR9 I've run. Rapid fire all day, no bolt bounce whatsoever. But the solid CAC bolt did give me a couple problems, but it could have been because I used the 308 spring with it instead of the standard spring. It was probably too much mass, too much weight moving forward quickly. So I did get that bolt bounce.
Oh, it was you had a higher velocity from the spring, so it caused more bolt bounce. That's possible.
Yeah, and that's when it blew up in my face. But yeah, I only asked because AR9s are so picky as far as bolts.
Yeah. So honestly, just direct blowback on an AR9 really sucks. It's like a horrible technology, but it is what it is. So you got to make it work because there are other options are going to be a lot more expensive. So I think it can be very reliable. So I haven't had any problems so far. I've only shot though 200 something rounds, so not that much. But you just have to tune it for whatever your setup is. And unfortunately, AR9s are not standardized like AR-15s are. So there's a lot of variability between manufacturers. So you have to kind of play with it to get it right.
Agreed. Right on. I love the AR9. That's why I brought it up. But
I see someone here mentions polycarbonate nylon blends. I haven't seen anything about them, so I don't know. But it sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking for the
thing is, there's new filaments coming out every day, man. Like the technology. I mean, you can buy a thing to make filament at home for like $600. You know?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to mess with that. But that's kind of like reloading. Pre-pandemic reloading, my time's more valuable than pulling a lever like this. Now I'm kind of kicking myself.
When you want to take like your kids' toys and be like, if you don't behave, I'm turning your shit into filament. So I mean, it has uses too. I mean, we'll get there. We'll turn into eventually you'll have a trash compactor at your house that you throw all your plastic into, and then you push a button, and it's like, and it makes filament for you.
But recycled plastic is not so nice though. But yeah, it works for some things. Depends what you're doing.
It'll happen. I mean, like the first printers used weed whacker wire. That sounds like a joke now.
Right.
That seems unbelievable, but that's what the first printers used.
Didn't even think about that. Yeah.
So, honestly, I tried making an extruder a long time ago, like 8 years ago, something from weed whacker string. I thought that's what they ran actually. I don't know. I just seen pictures. So
you can run weed whacker wire and print stuff. The thing is, you have to dehydrate it for literally a week. Like when I say a week, I mean at least 5 days before you.
Unless it's in a vacuum, but yeah,
and
it's soaking wet.
Yeah. I ran solder wire through one of my machines. It wasn't pretty, and the cleanup on it was nightmare. It was a little bit of a learning curve, but I mean, I had walls on a cube, printed in solder wire. So
absolutely,
That's on a machine that no longer exists here anymore. But
Yeah,
Right.
metals don't have a glass transition, so they're really hard to work with because of that. But
Yeah.
that is interesting. You actually tried that.
What I got out of my metal chase was that tin is the best way to go about it. But the thing is you don't get a lot of strength out of tin, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, you could print Rich's cat over here if you wanted to, you know, if you figured it out, you know. But like, you're not going to be able to print any. Like, I wouldn't go printing an AR lower out of tin, you know.
And it's gonna be heavy.
Yeah.
I would
So
try,
a lot of this-
try it. I'd pull the trigger on it if somebody gave me one, but
Oh yeah.
you know.
And that's another interesting thing that you mentioned, that is that a lot of people like think the gun's gonna blow up. Like I've gotten all kinds of comments like, you know, I'm being not safe and stuff, but an AR lower, the worst case scenario isn't gonna hurt you unless you put it in front of your face or something. So
People don't understand the pressure's not in the lower. There's no, you know, I mean, like
it's not even in the upper.
but,
Yeah.
you know,
Even the upper doesn't contain any pressure. It's all in inside your bolt and your block there, whatever it's
Chamber.
called. Your barrel
3D printing
extension.
guns is a lot safer than people think it is.
Yeah. So unless you go with like the FGC9 or even AR9, you can get case separation and stuff. But that's a separate issue.
So Ralph, you printed an arc, right?
I was about to mention right now. Yeah, I was very hesitant to fire that thing. The handguard, the upper, the lower, the buffer tube, the grip, everything is 3D printed except for the fire control group, the barrel, and the bolt. Of course, the spring and the buffer. But I was holding it like this at first, you know, for a couple of times.
Who was making fun of who for what?
Look, man, I had my hands on it, okay? I didn't set up a 2x4 with a jig to fire it remotely 20 feet away. No, I held it like a man, a little far away, you know? But after I busted like 15 shots, I was like, all right, let me see. And
So you did an AR9.
It ran flawless. There's a design called the Arc that's coming out on January 1st from Are We Cool Yet? Invader Zip is the designer of that there.
Another Floridian.
Beautiful,
well,
man.
you know,
beautiful.
like with how many people are just buying printers now and like printing guns, like there's so much. Like I say it all the time, man. I totally believe in everybody's right to build a gun, everybody's right to have a gun and stuff. But some people shouldn't build guns, man. You know, like
but
if you can't, you probably shouldn't build a gun. But I completely support your right to build a gun. We would definitely be seeing substantial injuries, like people. You know, people losing eyes, people losing fingers, people get at least burns, powder burns and stuff. You don't see any of that. You know, it would definitely be in the news.
So I think it's out there, but people are not showcasing it. No one's really like, hey, look, I blew my hands off. I think we've seen a couple things where you see some shit blow up and it's like, oh, that was scary. I think Prince Shoe Repeat just posted his FGC9 experience.
Yeah.
And he had a couple out of battery.
Yeah.
You know, people don't want to post stuff like that because it makes the 3D printing stuff look bad. And, you know.
But 9mm is dangerous. Use 5.56.
Well, we see plenty of ND videos too on YouTube, man. I mean, you know, Brendan Herrera, he's always posting that shit. You know, people negligent, you know, NDing into their leg. And, you know, so, I mean, I feel like, you know, and people aren't afraid to roast their friends either. Like, yo, man, look, Kenny was at the range and he shot himself in the arm. You know, so like.
But the point I want to make about 3D printing is it's not like, you know, printing a document on a laser printer. It's not you push print and out comes, you know, fill in the blank. I mean, out comes a kitty cat. But
you gotta have some
there's a little bit more to it. Yeah. And it's not, I don't think it's the easy route. It's much easier if you're a person that can't legally own a firearm. It's much easier for you to get it some other way than 3D print one. And
I mean,
and
it's
that's
easier to buy a Polymer 80 kit and build one, you know? I mean, it's a lot easier to build a Polymer 80 kit than it is to print a frame and
in statistics, there's so many stolen firearms out there that people are going to get a stolen firearm probably first. Second would be a Polymer 80, you know, statistically further down the list.
So
a really nice thing with 3D printing is that, you know, you can do customization, you can do all kinds of cool stuff with whatever you want. I mean, you know, if you want to do an M4 build or whatever, you want a four-way switch or whatever you want, you can do it. So I think a lot, just an example, okay? So, but a lot of people, I think, since they don't do any design work, they're really missing out on a lot of what you can do with 3D printing. So people focus on the printer, and the 3D printer is actually, they're a lot lower cost than most software, and they're relatively simple to run. I mean, there's a lot of nuance you can get into, but I think a lot of people focus on the printer and not on the design side. So it would be nice to see better like open source design software and more people getting into designing, because that is where the real potential is. You can do very quick turnarounds and customization with 3D printing, but you can't take advantage of that if all you can do is download files off the internet. Like I
catch a lot of flack for that online, because I'm not afraid to tell you, hey man, learn to design that shit yourself. Somebody will be like, oh man, well, I don't like this. It's like, all right, cool. So you want to design it yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, stop being a dick. I just want the files. I'm like, yo, even if it's out of spite, even if they're like, yo, fuck that 2A 3D print guy, I'm going to go design my own. That helps everybody as a whole, because it gets more files out there, and you learn to design,
Yeah, the design work is where everything is at. Like it's so, if you're 3D printing and you're not doing design work, like you're really missing out big, because you can do there's so many little things which no one's thought of you can do, like little holders for stuff, and if you can design it, you can do a lot more. Like this is one of the first parts that I have printed, other than a couple other lowers, that I haven't designed myself, just because I design everything myself normally, and you can just do so much more stuff. You don't have to worry about someone else's problems and work around their design deficiencies and stuff. You can just, if you see a problem, you can fix it. So a lot of people, probably most people who have 3D printers or 3D printing, are missing out on that, and because of that, they're not achieving their maximum potential.
When the FNS 40 first came out,
watch out, we're on YouTube.
Remember, anybody print one of these yet? Anybody print one of these?
No.
So when this first came out, it was short. So this is like the long.
Whoops.
Yeah, usually
it's a live stream.
Yeah, if you hold up the actual,
just pop the slide off.
So 3D printing guns.
As we were saying, we're talking about airsoft here, guys.
Did he get it yet? Let's see. All right, let's add him back in. We're good.
So anyway, so when that first came out, it was a long slide version, right? Everybody was buying the long slides for like what, $150 or something like that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to wait for the long slide version that came out, so I just took the file and I was like, all right, cool, man. I'm just gonna modify it, and I made it's super basic, compared to what's available today. I mean, they did a really nice job on that frame, but I just made a long slide version. I was like, I'm not going to sit here because this shit looks like ass, and I just made it my own, because I was like, yeah, fuck all this. I'm not waiting.
Yeah. And you can do that if you just, get into it a little bit. I'm actually probably a bad operator of the CAD software I use. I'm not actually very good at it. And I do all this stuff just fine, just by using it. You just learn some basic stuff. You can do all kinds of things. So a lot of people who think that it's complex could get into it, and you just start designing stuff, and you suddenly realize that there's all kinds of potential there.
So I got into 3D printing because of how difficult it seemed. Like P80s were too easy for me, so I started modifying them to accept Gen 4 and Gen 5 slides. I went as far as completely creating a full Gen 5 P80 with the ambi slide stop and everything. So naturally, to me, it was like I had to graduate to 3D printing. It seemed like it was more difficult. Like now I think I'm ready to graduate to what you're saying, Hoffman, as far as learning the design and how to make your own stuff.
Yeah, I started designing long before I got into 3D printing. So the design came first for me.
Yeah, so Rob Pincus, he's kind of the mastermind behind the Gunmakers match, everything like that. For people watching, they don't know. He bought his first printer a year ago, and when he first got it, it was completely foreign to him, and he had no idea what he was doing. And now he was in a matter of I don't know, I want to say 3 months, or maybe off by a little bit, but in a matter of months, he was like, oh look, I put a palm swell on this frame. Oh look, I put my logo in this frame. Oh look, I changed this. I added a magwell, and it was just from him asking. He was just like, hey man, how do I do this? Or he would ask somebody else, hey, how do I do this? And he wasn't afraid to learn. And in a matter of months, he became fairly good at fusion and stuff like that. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Not to change the subject, but just a quick question. Why is, in general, just the 3D printing gun people in general across the internet, what's the obsession with 9mm subguns? Just out of curiosity.
It's just a cool thing. 9mm.
I mean, nobody wants to shoot 40 anymore.
Yeah.
What about 308 guys? Like, a real cartridge.
I'm ready. The file drop is out for the 308.
So Digital Nimbus Labs. I don't know what his name is, but he just bought my last 20L kit, and he's doing a 10mm frame. And you know what? I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I was like, I even messaged him afterwards. I was like, dude, like, I can't wait to see this, man, because I mean, like, you know what, you look at it and you're really like, it's not that bad, but like, dude, that's a ballsy ass frame to make, man.
So the arc is 9, 40, 45, and 10mm.
10.
So you can shoot 10 out of a fully 3D printed arc. That's what makes that project so great, is the fact that it's very versatile, and it's now even being translated into 5.56. So there's going to be a rifle.
That's
version.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's going to be a rifle version of a printed upper, lower handguard. Can't wait to see where that goes, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Alrighty, guys, we've gone significantly over. I want everybody to close up the channel, and dude, we got to have you all back. Everybody got to have you all back.
We haven't even discussed anything. We're just getting started here. Like, we haven't started focusing on anything yet.
I need to get Hoffman on my show.
Yep, for sure. I'll hook you up if you guys don't have contact information. Ralph, why don't you give your channel and your information, how people can contact you?
Sure. I'll share my screen here if you allow me.
Sure.
Do you see it at the bottom there?
Let's see. It's not pulling up yet. That screen. Hold on. Boom.
I'm on Instagram as Strike80 Ralph. This is my new YouTube channel because I talked to NBC, and now JSD Supply calls me JSD Ralph or NBC Ralph. But yeah, YouTube nuked my channel. I was almost at 16,000 subs, so I had to restart. I'm almost at 1,000, guys. Please hit that sub button. Help me out. Trying to get my numbers back up. I'm on Twitter a lot now. I recently got into Twitter at P80 Ralph. I'm always on there. Holler at me. No, Hoffman isn't on Twitter.
No Twitter.
What?
I can't do Twitter either, man. I can't.
Entertaining. Very entertaining.
I don't know. I was bigger on Twitter like 5-6 years ago.
I will say my brother's been like slinging NFTs on Twitter, dude. He made like $15,000 last month selling NFTs, dude. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Made me want to get Twitter, and then I realized how much I hated it. So
I used to use it back in high school in like 08, 09. But recently, Chairman Juan I started linking up with him, and he was like, bro, I'm on Twitter. And I said, Twitter? That's so 10 years ago? But then
MySpace. I mean, I'm on MySpace still.
MySpace.
I'm going to be the guy who's like, yo, man, catch me on Metaverse, dude. Catch my avatar on the Metaverse, dude. Find me on that yacht or something.
Nah, Twitter's pretty entertaining, though. But yeah.
Tim?
So you can find me. I have a website, HoffmanTactical.com. You can catch me out there. I have a YouTube channel. It's at Hoffman Tactical, and you can also find me on Instagram at Hoffman Tactical. So I'm pretty easy to find. Just pick your favorite search engine, search Hoffman Tactical, and you'll find me.
Cool.
So pretty basic.
Right on.
But yeah, Twitter, guys,
You don't follow anybody, Hoffman. I was like, damn, this guy follows like 10 people.
It's all about the ratio. Your status doesn't matter how many followers. It's the ratio that matters. That's what matters.
I only follow 70, but I got like 3,300 followers. So, my ratio was all right.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
All right. Okay. 2A 3D print. You want to pimp your stuff?
Yeah, so I'm mostly active on Instagram. That's where you'll catch me most of the time. It's 2A 3D print or 2A 3D _ print, if depending on at which point Instagram decides I'm an issue, because I've had multiple posts just today taken down. So it's a matter of time. And then my website's 2A3dprint.com.
Yeah, I joined Instagram just to get Zucked. That was my whole intention. Just like I got Zucked, just to make me feel special. So they haven't done it yet, though. Weird.
And as always, you guys can find me at flyingrich.com or youtube.com/flyingrich. I'm Flying Rich on, let's see, pretty much everywhere else. Instagram, flyingrich_official, and Flying Rich on Twitter. So, guys, thanks for coming on. I probably could go another hour and a half.
Me too.
And we'll have to regroup and do this again sometime. So super appreciate y'all.
No doubt, man. Thanks for
having us.
And I got to click the end broadcast button.
Later, guys.